You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
T-Wolves send the crowd packing early in Denver for their sixth win in a row. Final score 115-95. What's going on? Back in the lab, back at it. Another T-Wolves postcast episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. Jack Borman with me as always. Give him a follow at JRBorman13 on X. Jack, lots to get into, including how the Wolves have won 6 in a row, and the schedule is only going to get easier. But first, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Game Time. Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so obviously Wolves trying to get their 6th in a row. You got all the big boys back. Rudy, second game back. Julius looking good. DDV hitting his peak. You name it, we got him. Really strong first quarter for the Wolves. Outside of maybe some offensive rebounding, they go up 8 after 1. Kind of sloppy play, honestly, in the first and second quarter for both teams. Almost like both teams trying to do a little bit too much, trying to maybe make too many plays. Nuggets go on an 8-0 run. Wolves answer with a 12-2 run. So they go up 9 going into halftime. Wolves win the third quarter, 32-27. And then in the fourth quarter, Jack, they just put it away. Points off turnovers, three-point shooting. Ant ends with 29, Julius with 25. The starters get pulled with 5 and change left. 9 games above 500 now, 38-29. Big picture, like start here. Again, all the big boys are back. Rudy, Julius is cooking. Even Conley's playing a little bit better. They come in on this 5-game win streak, but all versus teams below 500. Now you go into Denver, the second best team in the West. You lay the smackdown on them, Jack. You're healthy. Other top teams are not healthy. The schedule looks soft. So how are we feeling right now, Jack?
Yeah, I think it's hard not to feel great. I mean, to win 5 games in a row against, a team that's as high quality as the Denver Nuggets is certainly nothing to sneeze at. I know that they didn't have Aaron Gordon, but I'm pretty sure they had Aaron Gordon in the first 4 games for sure. The previous 3, but yeah, I mean, for them to win the season series now against Denver, they're 3-0 against the Nuggets this season. 2 of those games, the most recent 2 games, have been completely dominant wins, and I think there's a real psychological edge that this Timberwolves team has over the Nuggets right now, and I just think the defensive strategy of having Anthony Edwards on Jamal Murray and Jaden McDaniels on Michael Porter Jr. is kind of the inverse of what the Timberwolves do with a lot of other teams around the league. And I think that Anthony Edwards really gets up for that matchup. Jamal Murray only had 1 point in the first half. I think it was like 1 of 6 from the floor. And he was great. And then Michael Porter Jr. was awful in the first half because Jaden McDaniels was all over him and he couldn't get any clean looks. And then for Rudy Gobert to play the way that he did against, Jokic was huge. We'll get to that later. But yeah, I think, again, no one on the Wolves played more than 31 minutes. Only Anthony Edwards played more than 31 minutes. But yeah, I think for the Wolves to keep pace with Golden State, who's 9-1 in their last 10, is huge. They've won 5 in a row. So, I think as both those teams continue to creep closer towards that 4 line, that is kind of the next important mark. I think it's just going to be a complete bloodbath for who the top 6 teams in the league are, and the Wolves are kind of fortunate right now in that teams above them have stars who've gotten hurt that we've talked about. Everyone else's schedule is getting more difficult, and now the Wolves, in between now and when they play the Nuggets again on the 1st of April, they have a 5-game homestand against Orlando, Utah, Indiana, and 2 games in a row against the Pelicans. And then after that, you have Indiana, and then at home against the Suns and the Pistons. So you have 7 of the next 8 at home, all very winnable games that they will probably be favored in all of those games. So again, I mean, now's the time to make a run, and it's couldn't come at a better time for the Timberwolves to be playing what is very clearly their best basketball of the season, as they're now one of 4 teams, OKC, Boston, and Cleveland, that is in the top 10 in both offensive rating and defensive rating. And those are the teams that generally end up competing for the NBA title when it's all said and done.
100% well said there. Yeah, they haven't won the first three from Denver since I think Rudy said on the broadcast 03-04 season back with KG. How about that? Also, too, you look at the standings, the updated standings now. Golden State and the T-Wolves both 16 and a half games back from Oklahoma City Thunder, but just shows you where they're at. Technically, Golden State has played 2 less games, so their winning percentage is 0.002% higher. But nonetheless, again, splitting hairs there, just neck and neck for that 6th seed. All right.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
Jack, tonight's game MVP, who was it and why? Talk to me, lay it on us.
Sorry about that. I couldn't find the unmute button. Yeah, I think, you certainly could go with Julius Randle for the work that he did. And we've certainly given him his flowers and his love the last few shows. And we certainly will later on in the show. But I've got to go with Anthony Edwards. I just think, the tone totally changed because of the way that he played in the third quarter. And just for Ant, 29 points on 10 of 22 shooting. He was 5 of 12 from 3. And 4 of his 5 free throw attempts, 6 assists, 4 rebounds. He's a plus 10. I just think that, the way that Ant impacted the game at all 3 levels of the floor, and then for him to play the way that he did defensively against Jamal Murray and just make things really difficult for him and be willing to fight over screens and play through, Jokic in that 2-man game, kind of fight around those screens. I think it says a lot that your star player is willing to do that. And also, be the guy that's carrying the load offensively on the other end of the floor in a regular season game on a Wednesday night is huge. And I think that there's a healthy disdain that Anthony Edwards has for this Denver Nuggets team. And I think when your best player has that edge and brings that edge in a game like this on the road, does a lot to kind of permeate a really strong and palpable confidence throughout the rest of the roster and the rotation that played tonight. And I think they really fed off of the energy that he brought. But yeah, I just think that he went into straight up attack mode in that third quarter. Went after Zeke Naji and pick and roll. They forced switches to get that matchup. And again, Jaden and Dante and Julius all were really, really, and Mike too, were all really, really smart in the way that they went up and kind of ghost screen to get the right matchup for Ant. And he did a great job of attacking downhill. Hit Jaden for a couple of corner threes, and man, this offense has another level to get to when Jaden can consistently knock down that corner 3. But yeah, for Ant too, also led the charge in the Timberwolves, really dominating the 3-point battle in this game. Ant was 5 of 12, which is great for him. Love that he's getting above 10 with the rate at which he's knocking him down. But the Wolves as a team, 16 of 36 for 44%, and Denver was just 5 of 26 for 19%. And it's really tough to win in the NBA these days when you're only taking 26 threes. And I think it's a huge reason why Denver just is not a super dangerous threat in the West, because they if you look at, we talk about the overall field goal attempt differential as a key stat in the NBA, but I think even more so today, the 3-point field goal attempt differential is a really important stat to look at. And Denver is dead last in the NBA. If you take the amount of threes that they take and subtract that from the amount of threes their opponents take, that is the worst figure in the NBA. It's minus 6.6. So they take on average 6.6 less threes per game than their opponent. And, you have to just be super efficient from 2 to be able to consistently beat your opponents. And to their credit, they have. But Denver shot just 58% at the rim tonight, well below the league average of 66%. So, I think, again, the Wolves just also, too, had a very clear emphasis of trying to run Denver off the floor. And this is a team that leads the league in fast break points per game and in points in the paint per game. They're excellent in both of those categories, but I think the frenetic pace really favored the Timberwolves in this game because they're a really deep team, and I think when the Wolves can trot out 9-10 dudes that are ready to go on both ends of the floor. And Denver only has 8 guys, and the 3 guys that they brought off the bench tonight are all very one-way players, which is something that the Timberwolves struggled with last year between Kyle Anderson and Nikhil Alexander Walker not being super dynamic players in terms of the way that they impact the game, only really impacting things in one or two ways. Being able to now bring Dante and Nikhil and Nas all off the bench is just, gives them so much versatility. And Jaden McDaniels leveling his game up too, has a lot to do with that as well. But, the Timberwolves bench before garbage time hit, they won the bench battle 21-5. And, DDV was plus 23, Nas was plus 17, Nikhil was plus 10. So, the Wolves really making an effort to run early and often and kind of tire this team out and force Denver to try to get into their bench a little more, was really important and was huge in terms of them being able to get out to an early lead and kind of control and dictate the terms of this game.
Just real quick, the three things that you just touched on, the pacing that they played with that helped create those 19 points off turnovers, as you mentioned, the bench play, DDV, Nas, and Na, and then them shooting 17-7 in the three-pointers. Rank those, I guess, maybe tonight and then just in general, like rank those three specific areas from most important top to bottom.
Yeah, I think the pace is super important. I think that's honestly the most important thing to me. And I liked that the Timberwolves still played with pace when Rudy Gobert was on the floor. Yeah. Because I think with Rudy, he's so good in the half court on both ends of the floor in terms of the way that he impacts the game that most teams that he is on will want to slow the game down and make it a half court game. That's very much what the Timberwolves did last season. They were, near the bottom of the league in fast break points. And, and we were all kind of imploring them to try to get out and run more and make it easier on themselves in that, offensively. But, I think especially when you get Rudy to hit those quick outlet passes, like he was really trying to find Dante and Jaden and Ant, to kind of create those transition opportunities. And that's super important. That's something that Rudy Gobert can do without himself running the floor. It's just being more aware of kind of where your teammates are and what's going on. And I think when Rudy's really looking for that, you can tell that guys are hammering him like, come on, we gotta keep up the pace. We gotta, find those outlet passes as best you can. And I think the more that they can stay on him about that is going to be really important because, now, even if they do want to play it at a faster pace, they've got Jalen Clark, they've got TJ Shannon, they've got Rob Dillingham, guys who have had some exposure to playing rotation minutes, which is important as well. And I think if you can keep the pace high, that kind of leads to more ball movement, that leads to more player movement and should create some easier looks from three as well. And then, if you play at a higher pace, okay, guys need to go a minute or 2 minutes shorter, then you feel really confident in maybe taking guys out a minute or two shorter or earlier than you normally would because you've got those three guys coming off the bench. So they all kind of feed each other. And I think, the order of importance really comes with, the pace being right there at the top of the list.
Well said there. Plenty more deep dive, including the turning point of the game, plus, like you mentioned, the impact of Rudy Gobert. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Right now, FanDuel's giving you a chance at a huge return, $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 bet. Why I love FanDuel? When you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can go check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more, all on the same page where you're placing your bets. Again, $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you hit your first $5 bet. Go check it all out over at FanDuel.com. Get in some NBA future action while you're there. Naz Reid's 6 Man of the Year odds has moved to 4-1 now. It's all sitting up over at FanDuel.com. Again, check it all out over at FanDuel.com and get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 wager. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
When was the turning point of the game for you tonight, Jack? What'd you see?
Let's go back to the third quarter. The Nuggets get back. Mike hits a 3 to start the third quarter, and then Denver goes on either a 7-0 or 8-0 run at that point, and kind of uses some of that momentum to get back within 5. Chris Finch calls a timeout, and then a couple trips later, Ant hits a 3. and the Wolves offense is really kind of sputtering at this point, doesn't have a whole lot of flow or rhythm. And he hits a pull-up three to get it back within 8. And then that's kind of when the Timberwolves started spamming high pick and roll with Ant and Gobert and targeting, certain players on the Nuggets roster. Especially once Zeke Naji and Peyton Watson got in the game, they were able to force switches pretty easily, and Ant was able to get downhill and did an excellent job of making decisions, whether that was to pull up and shoot or get into the mid range and hit Jaden McDaniels a couple times in the corner on excellent skip passes. Especially that second pass he had was just out of this world good. And then again, I think just the way that he got into the paint with relative ease and drew in the defense just really softened things up for other guys to make plays out of that against, kind of a spread out, rotating defense. And the Timberwolves have a lot of guys, whether it be Nas, Nikhil, Dante, Julius, Nas. I mean, I'm probably missing guys here, but Mike, that are all really good at making decisions and playing off the catch in those situations. And so when you have a team like the Wolves that do an excellent job of making extra passes and want to shoot more threes, I think you got a player that can get into the paint and really draw things in. Really, two guys with Ant and Julius that can do that at a really high level. I think you're going to produce a lot of really strong 3-point looks, which is exactly what happened in that third quarter. And I think that was just kind of when the psychological shift really took place, was when Ant kind of struck the fear of God in that defense and just kind of realized, like, they've got nothing for me if I put the ball on the deck and get into the paint. So I think that was where it all kind of changed for me.
We talked about after last game, that is, the impact Rudy Gobert had. Even though obviously he's the defensive stalwart, right? They also happened to put up 141 points his first game back. Now in his second game back, they go into Denver, they beat the Nuggets by 20 and put up 115. What did you see tonight from him and kind of big picture since he's been back? Small sample, 2 games, but what kind of impact has he had, I guess, on both ends of the court that they didn't have maybe while Rudy Gobert was out?
Yeah, I think to be able to trust somebody in one-on-one coverage to guard Nikola Jokic is pretty remarkable. And I think, too, the other thing that Rudy Gobert does really well, and a lot of his teammates do really well, also, is that Rudy makes it really tough on Jokic as a passer. I know that Jokic can kind of go through Rudy's chest and put him underneath the front of the rim and elevate and get up and score points that way. And Jokic had 21 points in the first half. He was excellent. And I think he was like 9 of 11 inside the arc in that first half. But Rudy Gobert is so smart in terms of knowing how to kind of funnel Jokic and fight over the top to force Jokic to certain spots on the floor where he knows he has help. Whether it's, Randle can pitch in and help if Jokic is trying to turn, over his shoulder to get to the middle of the lane. Jaden McDaniels does such a good job off the ball guarding cutters and guys that are trying to move. And I think, this Timberwolves team has played the Nuggets what seems like every third game for the last 2 seasons, that they really know what the Nuggets are trying to do once Jokic has the ball in the paint or in the post. And so I think that familiarity certainly helps, but especially when they get to those wedge actions to screen for Jokic so that he is coming across the middle of the lane for a post entry pass. Gobert did such a great job of knowing when to try to fight through those screens, when to switch it. And then once they do switch it, Jokic has a favorable matchup on him. And then Gobert just finds a way to communicate with his teammates and kick out a smaller defender so that he can get back to guarding Jokic. And if that can't happen, he does an excellent job of finding a way to impact Jokic's shot and or be there to grab a rebound. And so I think it's the smarts for Gobert that really elevates him in areas and in matchups where he may be at a physical disadvantage like he is with Jokic because of how big and strong he is. But yeah, again, I mean, Denver is a team that loves to try to get in and score in the paint, and they certainly did. I mean, they had 52 points in the paint before again, before, they took all their guys out, and 60 is kind of that league leading number that Denver holds right now. But again, to hold a team like Denver to just shooting, 18 of 31, 58% at the rim and 41% in that short mid-range area. So, what is that? 27 of 53, right about 50% inside the free throw line is an awesome number. And I think Gobert has a lot to do with that, and did a great job of, keeping guys away from the paint so that it would be easier for his teammates to be able to get in and contest shots. So I think defensively, that's been really important. And then to answer your question on the offensive end of the floor, I think that the Timberwolves have really found good synergy really with the three bigs and any kind of combination of them, but more specifically when it's either Randle and Gobert or Reed and Gobert. They've run a ton of horns up top. So two guys setting screens on either side of the ball handler, or those double drag or stagger screens where, Rudy is always setting the first screen, and then either Randle or Reed is setting that second screen, and the Wolves finding a way to play off of that with Rudy diving to the rim. And then, the four in this case. So a lot of times it's Randle then engaging Ant in that 2-man game with Rudy down there, and the dunker has been super beneficial. And I think Julius has kind of found his rhythm in terms of how to play in and out of that, and knowing where Rudy likes to be on the floor. And that's been huge, because I think, when you get the ball to either Nas or Julius Randle in the middle of the floor, and Rudy Gobert's in the dunker spot, both those guys are good enough passers and, kind of agile enough to be able to create some interesting passing lanes to find Gobert down there. And I think that they're really starting to do a better job of finding him when he's open in that dunker spot or across the front of the rim. And so I think, the spacing being a lot better as a result of, Julius really starting to understand how to play off of Rudy has been really important. And then two, I think Julius also, is getting a lot of pretty favorable matchups because of, defenses kind of parking their rim protector down there because of the threat that Julius and or Ant pose as drivers. And then, when they're loading up on Ant and Julius is playing in the corner, what have they been doing? They've been posting Julius up in that low block or that mid post area. And he's been excellent in terms of going quickly, getting to the middle of the floor and getting to that little step back jumper that he made 3 or 4 times tonight. And then the other part of it too for Julius is he also kind of knows when, the defense is starting to cheat in on him getting to the middle of the floor. So he knows, okay, this is a spot where I've got to draw the defense in and then kick it out to a teammate. So I think his decision making has been next level. It's been great for the Wolves, especially since he's been back. But, again, even when Julius is out there playing the 4 with Nas too, he's just shown no fear in attacking downhill and going through the chest of bigger and stronger defenders like he did with Jokic tonight. So I think, Julius Randle has been fantastic. And I think certainly is, I think making everyone else understand why it is that Chris Finch has so much faith in what he can bring to the table. And I think is certainly playing his way into, not just being able to opt into that contract or opt out of that contract, but I think the Timberwolves are going to have some pretty long conversations about extending Julius Randle if he can continue playing at this level, through the rest of the regular season. And
people in the chat just kind of trying to guesstimate what a contract might look like. Any guess at the top of your head, just knowing the value of Julius Randle and the money the Wolves have to play with?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's hard because
I know I'm not going to play this back in 9 months and say, Jack, you not only were you wrong, you were way off, dude. But just like a ballpark of like somebody like me, where I just don't know the type of money that they're playing with, and again, what a Julius type of extension might look like. 3 years, $75 million got thrown out there, but I don't know. You tell us.
Brandon Ingram just got $40 million a year from the Raptors. So I think if I'm Julius Randle's agent, I'm looking at that number and saying that guy is not better than me, or I am on the same level as that guy. Yeah. And so, it probably comes in lower than that. I would guess it's in somewhere in between $30 and $35 million a year. Okay. If that were to be on the table. And obviously, I mean, look at Sam Darnold, right? Like a lot of money can be made or lost once the games get more important. And there's still plenty of games to be played here in between now and the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, I mean, the Julius Randle is certainly, kind of flipped his mindset of like, I've got to be the number 2 scorer to like, I've just got to be a great basketball player. If that necessitates me having 14 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists, or 27 points, 7 rebounds, and 0 assists, like
and winning games. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that, he may create an interesting conversation where the Timberwolves may choose to keep Julius Randle over Rudy Gobert. And I do think that the Rudy Gobert extension has made him, potentially a better trade asset. If they do end up pivoting off of that. But again, like those are bigger conversations, and it's a good problem to have if you're the Wolves, in the sense that everyone's playing so well that, you've kind of got to pick a path, and that, you feel good about the different options you have in front of you, that you don't feel like you're being forced into any one direction.
A couple minutes left. Let's talk about this Orlando Magic game coming up Friday night. Plus, we'll wrap up with what we'll be talking about. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode also brought to us by BetterHelp. BetterHelp, when your schedule gets packed with work projects, whatever it may be, it's so easy to let your priorities start to slip, even when we know what makes us happy. But when you feel like you got no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy, they're more important than ever. If you've been thinking about starting therapy, maybe it's time to give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, and it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. And it's so simple. All you got to do, you fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched up with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Go visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today. You're getting 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, Magic up next, real quick. 30-36 on the year. Had the night off tonight. They got to go play the Pelicans tomorrow, which means we get them, on the back end of their back-to-back Friday night. Anytime in football, like with the Vikes, for example, anytime a team wins a solid, I don't want to call it huge because it's regular season, but an emotional kind of game, you always worry about the hangover effect the following game. Now, I'm not saying, again, this took everything out of them. Clearly, again, they pulled the starters with over 5 minutes to play, but is there anything in the back of your mind making sure these guys got to show up and give 100% Friday night versus a lesser opponent? And also, part B, what's that matchup versus the Magic look like specifically?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting one, just because Orlando is a team that's going to be willing to go, 9 or 10 guys deep, for sure. And even though they are down Jalen Suggs and they are down, Mo Wagner, 2 guys that, are out for the rest of the season and are, really solid players for them. I still think you can get to the end of the rotation, whether you want to put, Gary Harris in there, or Caleb Houston, or Corey Joseph. Those types of guys are all, going to be willing and able to give you some minutes in that 9th or 10th spot in the rotation. But yeah, I think for a team like Orlando, I mean, they're getting 50 points a game over the last 10 from their 2 best guys, Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. Both guys have struggled with their 3-point shot a little bit over that span. So I think trying to keep those guys out of the paint where, they can both do damage, not only as scorers in the paint, but playmakers as well. Both are very solid playmakers and also guys that can get in there and mix it up on the offensive glass, with both of them being there at 6'10". And then I think, that they've got to be able to contain a Wolves killer, tried and true Wolves killer in Cole Anthony. I think a lot of people still remember that game winner that he had a few years ago. So that'll be fun to see the Wolves go up against him. And then, I think it should be a really good matchup for Anthony Edwards, because he'll probably draw Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who we've seen, guard him over the years with the Nuggets. So it should be a really good opportunity for Anthony Edwards to get in there and be impactful, especially since, there's just not a whole lot of interior rim protection for this Magic team. And they struggle on the glass too. So they're bottom 5 in both offensive rebound percentage and defensive rebound percentage in their last 5 games. So I think, the more that they can spread the magic out with being able to shoot the three, that should, be able to, I guess counteract some of the length that Orlando has. So even though they don't have, a true, 7-foot rim protector between Banchero and Wagner and Wendell Carter, it's just a lot of length with those three guys all being, 6'9", 6'10". So I think the better that they can shoot the ball, the better off they're going to be. But again, I think if they can play with the pace that they played offensively tonight, continue to move the ball, and then have a guy like Dante DiVincenzo, who's willing to get in there and mix it up as a rebounder, as a playmaker. Maybe
6
be a little
boards,
bit more.
2 stocks, baby. Review that one, Finchy.
Maybe himself providing some rim protection for the Wolves. But I think if he can continue to scale his game up and down based on the opponent, and probably need to be a little bit more of a scorer in that game, I think that the Timberwolves should be just fine. But it should be a good competitive game because the Magic play really hard, and it's a defensively kind of focused team. But obviously they've struggled for sure with guys being in and out of the lineup all season long. And if the Timberwolves play with the same energy that they played with tonight, there should be no question that they walk out of Target Center with a win on Friday night.
This is what you'll be talking about.
All right, what's the water cooler talk tomorrow at work after this game, Jack? 115-95, going to Denver, win your 6th in a row.
Yeah, I think for me, it's might be kind of a bold statement at this point, but I think this Timberwolves team has a higher ceiling than last year's team. I think they're much more balanced. I think they're obviously a much better offensive team by offensive rating. I mean, this offense last year never really got above 16th, 17th in the league, and the Timberwolves have been the second best offense over the last 5 games. That's not counting tonight, and they're up to 10th on the season. Could be up to 9th after this game tonight. And to, like I said, to be in both top 10 in both offense and defense, and be the number 1 net rating team in the league over the last, 5 games is nothing to sneeze at. And I just think, again, their bench is so much more dynamic than it was last season, bringing Dante DiVincenzo into the mix. This is a guy that is an excellent team defender, really competitive on the ball, but has also become a much better playmaker as the season's gone on. I don't have the numbers in front of me in terms of what his assist to turnover ratio is since he got back, but he had 6 more assists and 0 turnovers tonight. So you just can't say enough about what he's brought to this team. And with Julius Randle really finding his rhythm, I think the sum of those two guys has, certainly been right at, if not, more than what Karl Anthony Towns gave them last season. And then you also think about the fact that, they're getting a 1st-round pick, most likely in this upcoming draft by way of the Pistons. It just is, it's an interesting conversation to have. And I think we've seen this Timberwolves team prove that they can beat anybody in the West. And I think they've just got to be able to bring their best in order to do that when the playoffs roll around. But the Timberwolves have been very good against the best teams in the league this year. So I'm very excited to see, what the next 16, 17 games and into the playoffs can bring.
Wolves blow the doors off the Nuggets in Denver. 6 wins in a row, 115-95 the final score. Everything just clicking right now at the right time. 38-29 now, 9 games above 500 on the year. As always, huge shout out to all you guys, all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. All you guys coming in the chat with us from game to game. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and please go follow Jack at Borman13 live from the Target Center. More games than not. Magic up next Friday night, 7 p.m. tip. I'll be at that one with my boy Tay-Law. That's my one game I get to go to this year, Jack. So hopefully we can link up. Say hi if you see us. Ben Beacon filling in for me on the 1s and 2s with Jack Attack. He'll be here as always. Catch him right here, same time, same place. But until then, signing out.